Hello and welcome back to the Masters of Cinema Marathon, number 4. For anyone who's watching this way after the fact and is kind of going from the first video to the second and the third and the fourth, and now you get to this one, which is technically the 5th, I suppose, because I did a video about Four Devils in episode 1.5. So there's been a 2-year gap since the last Masters of Cinema Marathon video and review, and since then I've decided to restart this series, which I've already covered in a separate video, but just for the, just for kind of to do some kind of housekeeping here and kind of explain it before we continue. I'm going to do these videos moving forward in a much more lo-fi fashion, where I'll just be talking about the film and the special features and the Blu-ray, but not to an extreme degree or to the point where I'm editing in pictures of the film and putting in like the little kind of the trivia tabs and stuff, which I had so much fun putting into those first few episodes, and I'm really proud of those videos. So if you haven't seen them, go and check them out. But I would love to present this as well as I think I did those first few, but it's just not viable from a time standpoint. I don't have enough time to do that. So these videos are going to be very free-flowing, kind of pretty much one take, and I'm going to give you my thoughts on the Masters of Cinema titles, and this will be a great way for me to kind of push myself into watching more of them, because there are, in fact, I worked out exactly how many I have, which is overall 157 spine numbers as of this recording, and I had seen 54, and I hadn't seen 103. So that's kind of like an interesting ratio there. I'm looking forward to diving in and watching some of them again to get a fresher perspective on them. And anyway, so I'm going to dive in now with the fourth, but the first of this new era of the Masters of Cinema Marathon. As I say, a marathon is, it's a long thing. It's not really a sprint, so it's going to take a very long time, and it's been taking a very long time just to get to this 4th video. So we're going to be talking about Jean-Luc Godard's Une Femme Mariée. It's A Married Woman. Yes, it was originally called La Femme Mariée, The Married Woman, and it is now was changed due to some censor reason to The Married Woman, I believe. No, A Married Woman. I don't know. I think it's The Married Woman. Whatever. So there was some confusion with the title, and they changed it. And there's something about this film in general that apparently was there was bits taken out. There was something to do with censorship in this film. And I wish I knew more about this film than I did, and I will tell you that I really tried with this one. And so I'm going to talk about the booklet. I feel like I have more thoughts on the goddamn booklet for this release than I have the film. So for the benefit of those who just want to hear about the film, I'll talk about that first. This is my virgin experience with Jean-Luc Godard. Probably, from what I understand, not the best entry point. And this Blu-ray, in fact, is an interesting one in the Massive Cinema range, because it was one of the first ones that went out of print, and so it was very expensive. In fact, it probably still is very expensive, and so I have to give a great thanks to James Merchant, who hooked me up with this one many years ago, and I finally got around to watching it, and to see whether it was worth all this OOP hype. Not so much. We follow a married woman, Charlotte, who is married, but is also having an affair with her lover. And we open the film, in fact, the very opening of the film really rubbed me the wrong way from the start, because it opens up with the title, Une Femme Mariée, but then there's a subtitle. So it's Une Femme Mariée, fragments of a film shot in 1964 in black and white. And I hasten to use the term, or the word, pretentious, but it just felt pretentious to me. I think of Neil Peart and his kind of definition of pretentious, or his thoughts on the word pretentious, where he would talk about the songs that he wrote for the band Rush and say, you can't call me pretentious because these are my words, these are my lyrics, it's me, I'm not pretending to be anything else, this is my art, But to me, that just felt pretentious, a married woman, fragments of a film shot in 1964 in black and white. Like, the screen goes to black and white, and it's just like, I don't know. It's just something about it I really didn't like. But then the film started, and I began to really enjoy it, actually. The transfer looks really nice, so that kind of adds to it. You know, you'd see, like, there's a shot of the main character Charlotte and her lover driving down the river Seine, I believe, in Paris, and you see the Eiffel Tower in the distance. And so for me, I'm almost kind of on board to some of these films where it's like I'm seeing this kind of high definition footage from like 40, 50, 60 years ago of all these kind of different countries in Europe and across the world. And so from that perspective alone, I kind of get something out of it. But the story, Charlotte, she's having an affair, and we kind of have three sections of the film, very loosely, where at the beginning she's kind of, we focus on a lot of the post-coital conversations of Charlotte and her lover, and a very great sequence at the beginning where we're just focusing on like the skin, you know, her back and the back of his head while she's stroking his hair, and their legs on the bed, and just close-ups of their body as they're talking, and fading in and fading out, and it felt very natural and kind of believable, but raw, and the kind of bullshit that people talk about just after they've had sex, I think, especially, you know, people who aren't necessarily in a long-term relationship. And then we see her reunite with her husband, who's been away for a while, and then we see her reunite with the lover again at the end of the film, and kind of tying up their relationship a little bit. And a lot of it I liked. Some of the dialogue was a bit wishy-washy, you know, kind of just existential kind of stuff, which was interesting up to a point. Lots of kind of whispered narration from Charlotte, just kind of talking about these things, and lots of cuttings of magazines, which seemed to be some sort of a, you know, kind of a comment on how, you know, women and people in general can kind of be influenced by not so much the media, but, you know, the at that point in time, the written word, the kind of print media of you know, popular magazines and things like that. At one point, she's kind of measuring her breasts based on like this magazine article, and her maid is talking about like this thing that she's using to make her breasts look better. So lots of vanity, you know, and kind of how that plays into it. And from what I understand, her job is a model. There's a sequence where she's modeling, and there's lots of other models at a swimming pool, and it goes into negative. And I was reading the booklet, and the booklet was talking about how, like, now that the image is in negative, it's like they're swimming in shit, you know, and I didn't get that at all. To me, it just looked like water in negative image. And then the film kept going from negative to normal, and it just seemed random and haphazard, and I felt like it was, again, a bit pretentious. Just seemed to be there for the sake of it, and then people kind of go, oh, and they fawn over it, like, oh, this is so brilliant. To me, this film felt very unfocused at times. And there are bits that I really liked, you know, but for the most part, overall, it just didn't really come around full circle to me. And I felt like Charlotte was a bit of an uninteresting character, which may have been part of the point, I suppose, you know, where we see this woman who is very much, her whole life is dictated by the men that she has in her life, her husband and her lover. And her husband is kind of aware of this lover, you know, he's had her followed in the past and things. And we see that her husband isn't a very nice character. There's a very shocking scene, I think. It's a very boring scene to begin with, where she's trying to play this record. Her husband's like, no, don't play the record. She plays the record, and it's just like a woman laughing inanely, just constantly. And then he grabs the record from her, and he's like, do that again and I'll rape you. And it's like, whoa, that escalated really quickly. Like, where did that come from? Later on, like, he apologizes for raping her at one point. And, you know, of course, you have to remember that rape isn't always a violent thing. It can be a case of where the woman says no and the man does it anyway, and she lets him, she doesn't want to, and that is rape, you know. So it seemed like one of those instances where, you know, and it was treated in a very kind of, you know, as if it was almost normal. And perhaps that was maybe something in the 60s that was just so completely removed from how things are now, which is horrible if that's the case, but maybe it isn't. Maybe it was, you know, I don't know, because I was thinking maybe the translation from the subtitles, because it just came out of nowhere, like, do that again and I'll rape you, like, whoa. Just seemed like such a spur of the moment, off the cuff comment, like it was an everyday kind of thing, you know, like, I'll give you a slap, or I'll rape you, you know, like, I was stunned when I saw that. Anyway. My favourite part of the film was in the middle, Charlotte and her husband have a guest over to their new flat, their new apartment, which they're very kind of gloating over how nice it is, the view they got on the balcony. A lot of superficialness to the characters in the film. And so they have this guest over, this older man, and we focus on the three characters, giving a monologue each. And it's almost like kind of like, like a film studies class, like here's a monologue from one character and another. So the first one is from the husband, who talks about the concept of memories. The second is from Charlotte. She talks about the concept of being in the present. And the third one is from their guest, who talks about the concept of intelligence and comprehension. And I really liked all three of the monologues, especially the third one. I really liked Charlotte's as well, talking, and it kind of explained a lot about her character, where she always feels like she lives life in the present, to the point where she feels like she's not even in control of her life. She just kind of does. She doesn't think, she just does. And that kind of explains kind of what because she seems very kind of carefree throughout most of the film in her kind of adultery, I suppose. And then we have the third monologue. It was interesting stuff. Like just the French language is very. I like the way it sounds, and some of the kind of philosophical and existential conversation that was going on in that sequence of three monologues was really interesting and intriguing to me. But ultimately, the film just doesn't seem to go anywhere in a way that I find interesting. There's snippets and kind of flashes of really good stuff. But ultimately, it was okay. It was a good film, but I felt ultimately unfocused. So that's my thoughts on the film, and I'm intrigued to see more of Godard's work. Certainly hasn't put me off him as a director. And the booklet is the main source of the special features on this release. It's a very scant release as far as the on-disc extras go. We only have a trailer. And it was actually a trailer that was edited and I guess created by the director himself. And after having just watched the film, a 4-minute trailer that just kind of cuts random images of the film wasn't all that interesting, but it was great that they included it on the disc, and that's all we really have again as special features. So the booklet itself is a mammoth 80-page tome. So here we go. Here's the booklet, and it's one of the thicker Massive Cinema booklets, and just look at the text. If you get a good look at this, it's very fine, small text, and so you get a lot packed into those 80 pages. And I felt like after watching the film, as I say, I didn't get too much out of it, so I thought, I'm going to read the booklet. I'm going to see what people have to say about it, see why people like it, see why people think it's relevant, why it's interesting, why it's worth talking about. And so I opened the booklet up, and at the very beginning we have a contents page that talks about, kind of what's in the booklet, and there's also kind of an introductory piece. And pretentious doesn't even, I'm almost at a loss for words. Some of the language here just, to me personally, is just completely out of the realms of my comprehension. I literally felt like I was reading a different language when I was reading this booklet. It made me feel dumb, and it made me feel like I was wasting my time. And this is no disrespect to the people who were involved in this, like Craig Keller, who was instrumental, I believe, in some of those earlier Massive Cinema releases. Surely a huge passion project for everyone involved, but to me it just washed over me. Like, when you read a sentence and you just realize you haven't taken in anything. I would read it 10 times and not really have any kind of clarification on what I was supposed to be getting from this, There's just a sense of posturing to me in a lot of this, and so it just, I don't know. And I could try and read some of this for you, and there was a few things here and there that made a little bit of sense and that I found interesting. And of course, something I should have mentioned about the film itself is the maid character, who is a character who I did mention briefly. She was talking about she took something to make her breast look better. The maid character talks to Charlotte very animatedly about her sex life, and it's a very interesting scene because she's talking kind of exasperatingly about her husband or her lover who's very kind of animalistic in bed and stuff, but she also talks with kind of great verve and kind of passion about it as well, and she seems like she lives a much fuller life, even though from a society standpoint, she's in a completely different position than Charlotte, who is very privileged in her standing in society and her kind of place in the food chain, I suppose. And there's a line that she said, the maid, which really cracked me up. She was talking about like the night before or something when she'd had sex with her husband, and she said, I was crawling around in my own debris. Which I thought was just a fantastic turn of phrase. So, they talk about the maid a little bit in the booklet. A lot of it is this roundtable discussion from a number of critics. And I just could not get into it. I get lost in the sea of quotations and citations, and it's like this film, it's like Bresson and all these directors, all the other Godard films that I've never seen. So perhaps maybe in 5-10 years, when I've seen all of Godard's films and I'm an expert on the man, I can come back and go, yes, I know exactly what they were talking about with the self-reflexive nature of the direct sociological discourse. These things that just to me don't seem to really make any sense again, and I probably sound completely what's the word? It's not snobbish. It's the opposite. I can't even think of the word to describe it. But it seems like I'm just kind of no. I got nothing. I don't even know how to my words fail me, as they did in my head when I was reading this thing, and I did in fact quit halfway through the book. 44 pages. Done. I'm not getting any more from this. I did actually skip ahead and read some of the lecture that Jean-Luc Godard gave in the 80s, I believe, and he talks about comparing his film Une Femme Mariée to the 1920s documentary Nanook of the North. I didn't see where he was coming from at all. The only thing I really enjoyed was the statement by Matcha Merrill, who plays Charlotte in the film, and she gave this statement in 2009 when the Blu-ray was released, and talks about her experiences with Jean-Luc Godard making the film, and I found that very interesting because she spoke like a normal fucking human being. So yeah, it's close-minded, maybe that's what I was thinking of. Maybe it seems like I'm coming across as very close-minded, but God, I gave it a shot. I read like 40 plus pages of text this small, and I really tried, but ultimately it just didn't come around for me. But that's okay. Not everything's going to be for everyone, and a lot of this just it just doesn't fit. But anyway, that is what it is, and the film I think I would watch again. I would like to see it again. There's certain things that I really liked. There's a moment where Charlotte is going to meet her husband, and the camera's like tilted on the side, and it spins around like this. And at first I thought it was going to be showing that her life with her lover is like just on the side, like it's completely on a slant, and then when she gets back to her husband, normality kind of recalibrates, but then the camera just continues to shift over. So I don't know, maybe her life is topsy-turvy. So there's just these few things that feel random. There is a shot in, I'm not sure where the location is, but she's walking across this building, and the camera's panning across, and you can see in the reflection of the glass, you could see the wheelchair with the guy at the camera and Godard pushing him with the wheelchair, which I thought was kind of funny, kind of one of those movie mistakes. And there's actually a shot in the booklet of them with that wheelchair behind the scenes in the booklet. So, not an entirely unworthy film, and it's certainly not without merit, but I just again, interesting, like, I don't know if you can even see that here, there's some close-ups of the characters, and that's something I actually quite liked, was how we would see like the mouths and the eyes, the close-up faces of the lovers as they're talking to each other and whispering to each other that they love each other. And there's kind of this repetitive nature of, I love you, I love you, do you love me? Yes, I love you, I love you, I love you. And it makes you feel like these people don't love each other, they're posturing, they're trying to make it seem like they're in love with each other, and the kind of constant cutaways to magazine articles and things maybe points to kind of a society in which people are purely kind of just doing things that they think are supposed to be done, like, hey, I'm supposed to have a girl and we're supposed to love each other and all that kind of stuff. I don't know. So there was interesting ideas in it, and there's probably more ideas in it that I completely missed because of my closed-mindedness. But I'm intrigued to see if anyone has seen this and what they think of it, and if they think that it was as unfocused and ultimately unsatisfying as I did. So I would actually say that this is my least favourite film in the entire collection now, or of the 58 films I've seen in the collection. So There we go. The previous contender was Youth of the Beast, which was pretty good, but nothing special. And I would say the same of this. It's a good film that just doesn't come together by the end, but it has flashes of great. But the whole package isn't great. So there we go. That's kind of been my discussion on Une Femme Mariée. Again, leave comments down below if you have any, and please be kind if I've offended you with my thoughts, because again, the booklet put me off the film because I was just so frustrated with how just kind of the kind of dialogue was in the booklet, and it just wasn't for me, you know. But that, again, that's it. It's not for me. Maybe for people who are a lot more literate, I suppose. I mean, I don't know, because then it makes me feel like I'm illiterate when I'm not. I'm really not. So again, it makes me feel dumb when I know that's not the case, and that's frustrating for me too. But you know, I'm certainly not as well read as many other people, and so perhaps it would be a lot easier for people who have studied that kind of stuff before. Maybe it's just one of those things, you know. It didn't grab me, and I prefer my readings on film to be from people who are speaking on my level, and I think my level is just fine, and I don't think my level is a level to be talked down to. It's just an average, normal, nice little level, you know. So there we go. The next video will be me talking about spine number 5 in the collection, and I can assure you I'll have a lot more positive things to say about it, and that is Al Reinert's For All Mankind. So until next time, I'll see you with that video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you then.
It's alright by me. Apart from the fact he throws cans of Carlin into a tree. Yeah, he's really cool. Yeah, he's really cool. But he's not quite as cool as you.